Hi, everybody. My name's Matt, and today we're going to very briefly go through what a referendum and an initiative is in the Arizona State Constitution. The Arizona State Constitution provides for something called direct democracy, and that means that citizens vote directly on laws or public policy rather than that being left only in the hands of the elected representatives for them to make the decisions for them. So, how is an initiative created? Well, a person or organization, generally an organization, has an idea for a new law, and that's important, or to change an existing law, or at times make a constitutional amendment. That person is called, or that organization is called a sponsor, and they will form a political committee that files a application with the Arizona Secretary of State. That Secretary of State will generate a serial number for the petition, and then the supporters of that law will go out and try and get signatures in support of this new law or referendum. Then, if they collect enough signatures, they will give them to election officials, not the legislature. And if they deem that enough valid signatures were collected, then it goes on the ballot for the citizens to vote on. How many signatures do they need? Well, for a general law referendum, it's 10% of qualified voters. For a constitutional amendment, it's 15%. How is a referendum created? Well, a referendum is created, and this is the key difference, when citizens want to push pause on a law that has already been passed by the legislature. Again, an organization of citizens who disagree with the law and they want the voters to decide. They will file an application, again, with the Secretary of State. They will go around and try and collect enough signatures from eligible voters in Arizona. And this is another difference. If enough signatures are collected within 90 days after the legislative session ends, and they've got enough, and it's determined they have enough valid signatures, then it will go to the ballot box for the citizens of Arizona to vote. Let's compare and contrast the two: initiative versus referendum. Well, the main purpose of the initiative is, again, to press start on a new law or change an existing law, or at times amend the Arizona Constitution. For a referendum, they're hitting pause on a law that has already been passed by the legislature. Both begin with citizens who either want to propose a new idea or push pause on a law that's already been passed. So it starts with the citizens. That's direct democracy. They both require signatures. The difference is that 10% for 10% of elected voters are required for an initiative, 15% if it's a constitutional amendment, and for a referendum, it's just 5% statewide. Then both go to the ballot box. The difference is, in an initiative, whether they vote yes or no to pass a new law, whereas a referendum, they vote yes or no on whether to reject a law that's already been passed. So that's the key similarities and differences between referendums and initiatives. So what's the pros and cons? They both have pros and cons. In the initiative process, citizens have the power. They don't feel that the elected officials are paying attention to issues or policies that they feel are important. Then they have the power to put that in the ballot box. It allows new ideas to go to the ballot directly, and it encourages civic participation and public debate, which is very important. And also, if they feel like there's an issue that the legislature is just avoiding, they can say, hey, we're going to vote on it ourselves. We're going to take it out of your hands, and we're going to do this ourselves. The cons: The ballot language can be extensive, it can be technical, it can be a lot of legalese, it can be hard to understand. And a voter might walk in and be influenced by ads or whatever and not fully understand what they're voting for and vote either yes or no. Campaigns can be really expensive, so that means that interest groups with a lot of money have an outsized amount of power relative to the citizen. And also, citizens aren't always familiar with budgetary restraints. Perhaps a law that they want to pass is very expensive, but that there's no money for it. Or problems, they can't foresee problems down the road that implementation of that law could cause. The referendum process, the pros are, the main one is that they can act as a check on the legislature. You passed a law, we don't like it. And we're going to have a say. We're going to put it on the ballot, and the citizens of Arizona are going to vote for it. It lets voters stop or hit pause to have some thought on the law, and it encourages accountability. Lawmakers know when they're making laws that the citizens do have this power, and they can act as a check on them. And also, really importantly, it's a peaceful, legal way to respond to what citizens feel are controversial laws. The cons, it can delay laws from taking into effect that perhaps could be really positive. Similar to the initiative process, the language in the ballot box can be extensive and hard to understand, and they're just being voted on simply yes or no. It might be a complex law. And again, campaigns can really be expensive, and it can lead to interest groups having more power than the average citizens. In terms of the Constitution, it's written in there. It's Arizona Constitution, Article 4, Part 1, which says that all laws be passed by lawmakers, the legislature, the elected officials. But it does have the provision in Article 4, Part 1, for citizens to maintain some power with these two processes, the initiative process and the referendum process, so that they can have a say. So that's a very quick rundown of what's provided in the Arizona Constitution and direct democracy, and how citizens play a role in how laws are made and providing checks on the lawmakers. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure whenever you have a chance, get out and vote. All right, thanks everybody.